What's up, everybody? Go Burns! Welcoming you to another installment of my vlog series over here on my Go Burns Vlogs channel, which you're probably checking out on Twitter or Facebook, unless you're one of my 40-something subscribers. Anyways, happy Independence Day weekend to everybody here in the States, where we celebrate eating hot dogs and fireworks and drinking. No, obviously, that's not what Independence Day is all about. If you're a history expert, obviously you know that. What we're going to talk about today, because CJ Ware said I could talk about whatever I wanted to in my vlogs videos. You know, politics, now I'm going to leave that over there on the other channel, which is in the featured comments section. No, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about movies, TV shows, so the vlogs can go just about anywhere. And you're always welcome to chime in below in the comments section regarding what you'd like to see me discuss in a future vlog video. Today, since it is Independence Day weekend, we're going to talk about Independence Day Resurgence. Okay, so 20 years ago, when I was 15 years old, I know, wee kid back then, I was really excited about going and seeing the first Independence Day movie. And it was awesome. It was great. It had Jeff Goldblum, you know, because I knew him from, Jurassic Park. It had Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Of course, Bill Pullman as well. It was such a great, cheese fest movie. And of course, it also had Randy Quaid, who was in, Vacation, along with Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo. So a pretty fun cast and an awesome movie. And, it's been a very long time coming since we finally got a sequel to Independence Day. And a lot of people would have been happy with no sequel, myself included, but it happened. And last Monday, I went to the theater of a friend of mine, Monday afternoon in the matinee, saved a few bucks, even though we did spend a few going to the XD version instead of the regular digital cinema, because, the seats were nicer and it was available at a better time for us to go. And what was sad about it was there was nobody in the freaking theater for up till 10 minutes before the movie started. And you can see the images right there. We had the whole fucking theater to ourselves, and those chairs were actually very comfy. But overall, I really didn't feel much of an overall impressive experience when it came to XD versus digital. I just wasn't wowed, to be honest. But anyways, 3 o'clock rolls around, and that's when the trailer starts. And finally, 20 minutes later, that's right, a whole 20 minutes went by of trailer after trailer after trailer before we finally got to start the movie. So about 3:20, that's when the movie officially kicked off. Now, be forewarned, I'm going to throw out some spoilage, just a little bit. Now, did I hate Independence Day Resurgence? No, I liked it. I felt like it was obviously not as good as the first Independence Day. It'll never be as good. It's not like Aliens to Alien or Empire Strikes Back to New Hope. But it was an okay sequel. There's been way worse sequels out there. But the truth is, in my opinion, Independence Day Resurgence was more of a requel. Now, it's a new word out there that people are talking about. It's a sequel, but at the same time, it feels like a rehash of something that was brought up in a previous movie. Like, for example, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Another really good movie. But it also has a very requel vibe to it, basing a lot from A New Hope, from original trilogy fans such as myself. But anyways, going back to Independence Day, Resurgence, yeah, I liked it. But it definitely didn't have the same vibe. I guess, the fact that Randy Quaid wasn't in this one for obvious reasons. If you haven't watched the original Independence Day movie, you should check it out. It's definitely much better than the new one. And more importantly, Will Smith, who played a key role in the first movie, wasn't in this one either over, I think, some sort of dispute. Like he wanted some sort of $50 million deal in order to be in the second and third Independence Day films, and they just couldn't come to an agreement. And it's also possible he was busy shooting other films like Suicide Squad coming out in August, and that thing looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. But back on point, once again, I'm going to attempt to stay on point regarding Independence Day Resurgence. You didn't have Randy Quaid, you didn't have Will Smith, and they both have their own kind of charisma, their fun that they bring to a movie. You still had Jeff Goldblum, which was good, and Bill Pullman. And let's see, the actor that played Jeff Goldblum's father from the first one, let's see, Judd Hirsch. It was funny because 20 years ago, Judd Hirsch looked old, And it's like, it doesn't even look like he really aged that much over the past 20 years. And he still was just as, on point and funny as he was 20 years ago. So there's definitely a really good dynamic there between him, Jeff Goldblum, and Judd Hirsch whenever he returned to play his father. And so some other actors that came back, surprisingly, let's see, Brent Spinner, a.k.a. Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. Because if you watch the first one, you wouldn't have thought he would have made it back to the second one. But hey, it is what it is. Then some other quick cameos was Vivica A. Fox. She played Will Smith's love interest in the first one. And then, of course, a really small cameo was the late Robert Laglia. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. He played the general in the first Independence Day, and he died shortly after filming his scene in Independence Day Resurgence. So anyways, the aliens hear about this transmission, from far in the depths of space, and now there are harvester queens. So in the first movie, the aliens were more like locusts. There really was no order to them. They just, went from planet to planet, destroying the major populace of the cities, and then eventually wiping out the most, I guess, sentient species, the one at the top of the food chain, and then they just, harvested the planet for raw materials, water, wood, metal, plastic, etc. And then they moved on to the next planet. Now, they added a lot more to the harvesters in Independence Day Resurgence, but I don't exactly think it was a good thing. For one thing, like I mentioned, now they have harvester queens, which look very similar to the xenomorph queens in the Alien series. And to be honest, Independence Day has borrowed from other sci-fi franchises. That is nothing new, but they definitely borrowed very heavily from the xenomorphs with the quote-unquote harvester queen. And, okay, so it goes back to Earth. 20 years later, society has rebuilt all the cities that were destroyed, New York, London, Houston, Los Angeles, etc., which I find very difficult to believe. And I've watched a video from Alternate History Hub, and Cody posted, I love that channel, by the way, and he posted why it wouldn't work out so well. That, after all this, there would be maybe like out of 5 million at the time, 5 billion, there'd only be like, 2 or 3 billion people left. Most of the cities would be destroyed. It would be almost impossible to rebuild those cities. You would just have to move to cities that weren't destroyed and rebuild from there. But in this case, they rebuilt the cities. We now have the Harvester Aliens technology, which we've used to upgrade the defenses of our planet. And I guess it makes life easier to get around from point A to point B. And, of course, the aliens hear about the signal because one of the city destroyers wasn't destroyed at the end of the first Independence Day film. It was actually somewhere in Africa, and it was drilling to the core of the Earth, but it stopped drilling once the mothership was destroyed in the first Independence Day film. But the other city destroyers, crashed and burned and were blown to bits. But so Jeff Goldblum, he goes to this warlord's camp, and then they go inside the ship and they discover the signal, and they discover that it's very possible that the harvester aliens are coming back. And then fast forward, Jeff Goldblum ends up on the moon, in this moon base, and a ball shows up, this other ball, which obviously technology wise does not look anything like the harvester aliens. And he's trying to tell the president like she's making a mistake by blowing it up, and several other world leaders agree with him, and several world leaders disagree, and of course she decides to blow it up anyways, without even bothering to try and communicate with this alien ball. And that was the first of many problems with that president. She made several mistakes in the movie. And of course, yes, shortly after, another alien harvester ship shows up, the largest one yet. Now, what's interesting about this harvester ship, unlike the mothership from the first one, is the mothership dropped city destroyers, which were like, a mile wide in diameter, and they entered the planet. The harvester ship itself, which was several hundred miles wide, I think, it was pretty huge. I mean, when it landed, it basically covered the Atlantic Ocean by the time it landed, and it had this ability with its own gravity to pull up like cities and like buildings and people, cars, planes, etc. And it ends up setting over the Atlantic Ocean, crashing into the East Coast, like just barely plowing through the new White House, by the way. And that alone should have destroyed the planet, to be honest. I mean, not trying to play nerd here, because I'm not really a sci-fi factional expert on such things. I'm no Neil deGrasse Tyson. But I would say that something that big entering our planet, even at the slow radius it was on like an asteroid or a comet, would have probably wiped us all out. We probably would have been dead because the ozone layer would have been ripped apart, and there goes our oxygen. The aliens would have won, but that didn't happen. But anyways, overall, going on 10 minutes now, my vlog video, that's where the movie should have fucking ended. But there were still some funny moments, but some of the new casts weren't as charismatic as, say, Will Smith or Randy Quaid was in the first film. But like I mentioned, we still had Jeff Goldblum. We still had Bill Pullman. He had definitely his moments near the end of the film. And a lot of it started to smooth out and really, got better until, I would say, near the very end. So Whitmore, basically, which is Bill Pullman's character, former president, he decides to sacrifice himself in order to destroy this. It looked like a smaller, more maneuverable version of a city destroyer. It was on top of the Harvester ship, and it's what the Queen alien used to travel to Area 51 again, because that's where they took the surviving Ball alien that apparently their race fought the Harvester alien races. And despite the fact they claim to have superior technology to the Harvester aliens, and they have a refuge for species that they've saved from being destroyed by the Harvester aliens, their species was wiped out. And the cliche is, of course, this is the only surviving alien ball left. So if their technology was far superior, why were they taken out by the Harvester aliens? Shouldn't it be the other way around, or should the war still be going on? Should there still be some alien balls out there fighting the Harvesters? I don't know. But anyways, the Queen's city destroyer arrives at Area 51. They lure it away with a decoy, and Bill Pullman sacrifices himself by going inside the city destroyer and blowing itself up, and with the alien queen inside. But to everybody's shock, the giant 30-foot tall alien queen survives, because she, on her exoskeleton suit, has her own built-in shield dampener, which I find kind of ridiculous. I mean, even if it was a really good shield generator, I mean, that explosion with the cold fusion bombs went off right in her fucking face. At the very least, she'd have a few, broken bones or something. I don't know. She didn't even look like she was phased by that cold fusion explosion. Of course, some of you are probably wondering, well, how did anyone survive on the outside if that was such a massive explosion? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Jeff Goldblum, he had like a shield generator that he put like in a perimeter outside of this area where it would absorb the blast and it wouldn't like create any further damage to, say, Area 51 or other outlying regions in the the West. But anyways, the alien queen, pops out of the ship, and she starts heading back to Area 51 because she knows the ball's still there, and they're trying to stop it. And all of a sudden, like, she takes control of all the little alien fighter ships, including the two that, some of the heroes were flying, and because they ended up inside the Harvester ship, and they got trapped or something. They managed to escape somehow. But anyways, all of a sudden she took control of those ships, and I'm just wondering, well, why didn't she take control of those ships to begin with? And so you had this big swarm of alien fighters flying around her, and ultimately, the two fighters that are they got other human crews in it, they decide to figure out a way to use the jet fusion drives in order to break free. And then, of course, they end up shooting the alien queen until she dies. Oh, and Whitmore's daughter, earlier than that, she's in one of the new fighter jets. She ends up disabling the generator shield thing that the Harvester queen happens to have on her body. But anyways, long story short, it was an interesting movie. And like I said, it had its moments. It wasn't the best of the two. That's always going to be the first Independence Day, which I thoroughly enjoyed as a child. But at the same time, there wasn't as much charisma because, I mean, with the exception of Jeff Goldblum and Judd Hirsch and Bill Pullman, I mean, even Brent Spiner had his moments, but at the same time, I think I still prefer Jeff Goldblum's performance a little bit better, along with Judd Hirsch. And I'm surprised he actually survived, but anyways. Yeah, it was an interesting movie, and I can see why it's turned out to be a dud compared to the first Alien movie, the first Independence Day movie, because, they tried to top it in a lot of ways, and there was a lot of stuff that happens in the second one that makes you wonder, well, if the aliens have harvester ships, then why did they come to Earth 20 years ago in a mothership with city destroyers? That didn't really make sense. It kind of tries to retcon some things, and a lot of it really didn't work. But overall, not a bad movie. It definitely was. If you're in the mood for some sci-fi cheese, alien invasion, explosions, you should definitely check it out if you haven't done so already. At least for a matinee, especially if you saw the first Independence Day film, which I probably already spoiled for you, so I do apologize. Spoiler warning, right? Too little, too late. But anyways, that's my thoughts about Independence Day Resurgence. Basically, more of a requel than a sequel to Independence Day. And feel free and chime in below in the comment section. What were your thoughts regarding Independence Day Resurgence?